All right, guys, welcome back to the episode. Today I have Journey Toole. Journey, I want to give you a shout out for a couple of things. I think one, since we've met, you have done nothing but delegate and scale your company to a level that I think is impressive for most adults, and you're doing it at a very young age. And whenever I go to a networking event and someone says, "Oh, you work with Journey," they always compliment how much volume you're doing. So, dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So, for everyone out there, one, how old are you?
Yeah, so I'm 25.
Okay. And how many transactions have you done this year so far?
Yep. So we checked it before we came in this morning. We are at 82 transactions year to date.
Okay, so let's go backwards to Journey, the guy who's just listening to Bigger Pockets all the time. When did you decide, like, man, I'm not going to get a traditional 9 to 5. I'm going to be a realtor?
Yeah. So I found real estate investing in college, and I knew it was something that I wanted to build long-term wealth, build passive income, and realized that I didn't like other people telling me what to do. So changed my major a couple of times, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, discovered that I wanted to just go full time into real estate. Found out being an agent, you kind of gives you that control to build your own business. Started studying for my license and went full time as an agent as soon as I graduated from college.
Were you telling people about this idea of like building wealth and maybe not having a job, or is it something you like kept to yourself?
It was mostly something I kept to myself, so I didn't tell my parents that I was getting my license until after I graduated, and I wasn't going into the normal career that I was planning on. Um,
Were they asking you like, "Hey, you applying for jobs?" or
yeah, yeah.
and how'd you handle that?
I told that I'm still keeping my options open and I'm still looking and seeing what I wanted to try and do. So originally I was going into like sports management, so I was staying around the sports field, and did an athletic directing internship and things like that while I was in school, and after just kind of trying to figure out what it was.
Was it like the time game, or was it acknowledging no matter how much harder I work, I'm not going to make more money, or was it both?
It was exactly that. So the second piece, it was knowing that there was always going to be a ceiling. So whenever I'm working for someone else, whenever someone works for someone else, there's a ceiling. It's going to be a maximum income that you can possibly achieve within that role or within that company. Whereas being an agent, and especially in real estate in general, there is no ceiling.
So are your parents entrepreneurs, or how did you have this concept of I'm going to work for myself, or did you have to like snap yourself into submission a little bit?
Yeah, so it was the complete opposite. So neither of my family members, or really anybody in my family, is entrepreneurial. So my dad has been working for the same company since he was in his 20s. He's got, I think, 35 or 40 years now there.
Dang, okay, he's loyal.
Yeah. So he was always just 9 to 5, come home, be with your family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Before that, she was working at a grocery store as well. So it was just always just very, very rigid as to, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get good grades, you get a job, you work for 40 years and you retire. And I knew that I wanted something different just with growing up and what our family was able to provide for us, me and my brothers. I knew I wanted something better,
Yeah.
and I knew that I had to go down a different path.
And when did you start having these thoughts? Was it kind of this lingering, oh, maybe I'll start a business one day? Or was there a clear moment where you're like, I need to do this or I'm going to go crazy?
Yeah, I think there was a moment. I think the moment that it was while I was a senior in college, which was about 2021. There was COVID was happening, but GameStop, if everybody remembers GameStop and GME, my brother had me playing around with stocks a little bit, and I got in a little late.
How late?
It was right at the top, and still to this day have not been able to recoup the funds that I put into it in college.
Fair.
And so I lost, money doing that. And I knew I wanted to invest. I knew investing was how you build wealth, but I knew that stock investing felt like gambling to me.
So you took the risk, but you had no control.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I had no control over what happened with it or who was pulling the strings.
Yeah, you can't just call them and be like, hey, I want the stock to go up a little bit in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So I knew that that wasn't it. So through research, just trying to find other avenues for investing, and found real estate and knew it was a tangible asset.
So how much content were you consuming? Because I think there's probably a lot of guys our age that maybe they hate their job right now, or they're getting some weird degree that they're doing for their parents. How did you consume content in a way where it didn't feel like you were just getting paralyzed by it?
Yeah. So For probably, so my final senior semester, let's call it January to May, probably between January and April, I was just listening to podcasts. So Bigger Pockets was the podcast I was listening to at the time. I ran through pretty much every single episode, and it was probably like one episode a day.
Okay.
So every single morning I woke up before everybody else, 5 or 6 a.m. and would listen to a podcast and would just kind of sit there and like play video games. At the time, I don't have as much time anymore, but would just listen to the podcast, play video games, eat my breakfast, drink my coffee, and just continued to just kind of soak in all of the information that other people were saying. And that's eventually how that led me to that path of becoming an agent. In April was when I started studying.
And why did you pick April to finally get the license?
I think it took me that long to realize that it was what I wanted to do. My final senior semester, I was taking an internship as an athletic director at a local high school. And literally, the athletic director told me that if he could go back 15 years, that he would not have done it. And that he was actually applying for other jobs while I'm interning. So I'm like, okay.
So
Maybe I don't wanna do that.
What did you feel? Was it kind of like fear or betrayal? Were you like, oh man, the guy I'm looking up to doesn't even like this?
Yeah, yeah. So it was a little bit. I don't even know if the word is fear, but it was just kind of lost. Like I was like, this is what I thought I wanted to do. I knew it wasn't going to be the highest paying job, but I knew I loved sports and I was going to be able to do something I enjoyed a lot.
Hmm.
But if like this guy who played sports, loves sports, isn't enjoying it and just shows up every day, I just knew that that's not something I could overcome.
Yeah. So when you got your license, how did you go about like picking a brokerage? Because I think there's a lot of people who might be like, I want to get into real estate, but it's just a thought. How did you turn that into something real?
Yeah, so I did a ton of research on different brokerages. Especially some of the bigger ones. I knew I wanted to go to one that had some sort of reputation. I didn't want to go to one that has like a little boutique shop. Essentially, I knew I wanted it to be a bigger name.
Yeah.
Researched the different commission splits. So every brokerage has a little bit different fee structure and different culture. The reason that I chose Keller Williams, which is where I am now, Keller Williams Living, they had a coaching program there. So as a new agent, when you go in, they put you right into a coaching program and they have accountability meetings and weekly meetings. And if anybody knows the agent testing, the real estate agent test exam, state exam to get your license doesn't do anything for what agents actually do.
Yeah.
So getting into the coaching program, that was exactly what I needed. I needed somebody to tell me and show me how to actually run a transaction in order for me to then be able to take off and start doing things from there. The other companies didn't have a coaching program like that.
Well, there's that meme everyone where it sees where it's like, here's what all the brokerages actually are. And whenever it's Keller Williams, it's like the unofficial training program for all other brokerages.
Yeah. Yeah. Keller Williams, their training support resources is completely unmatched with any other company.
So you got in and you didn't feel like it was intangible. So like let me ask you, what was your first transaction?
Yeah, it was a college friend. So it was a friend I went to college with, traditional home buyer, like $140,000 house in Mayfield Heights. It was probably like 3 months after I got licensed. And it was a nightmare. So and something that I did that not a lot of agents do is I actually partnered with the coach of the program.
Okay.
I split the commissions 50-50. So it was my deal. But I just gave her a 50% referral fee and told her that she needs to just run it and let me just be CC'd on every communication, CC'd on every email, and just let her take over everything.
What was it when you saw the first commission check hit your bank account? What did it feel like?
It felt like it was real. Obviously, it wasn't a lot because it was a $140,000 house, and I split my commission 50-50 with another agent.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was real, and I knew it was possible. And it was very exciting to know that this is how I'm going to do it.
And so talk me through that day. You get the commission closed, you know the deal's done, your buddy's now in a house they're happy with. What was your motivation like after deal one? Did it change a lot or were you like, man, I'm hyped now?
Yeah, I don't think it changed a lot then in that moment. I knew that I just wanted to keep doing it. I knew that I just wanted to keep working at it. And I don't. That wasn't the point when I switched to investing, which is obviously something we'll probably get into
Yeah.
later. But it
Well,
was
no,
just
I mean, let's go into it now. Why did you make that switch? So obviously you helped a friend and it was a buying situation. Where was the desire to go, man, I'm going to serve investors as opposed to just an average first time home buyer?
yeah. So I knew that I wanted to get into investing. I knew I wanted to be in that corner because it was something that I wanted to do personally. Real estate as an agent, it was something to build income, which and then I can put that income into investments. So real estate as an agent is active. It's something I do every single day to make money, and then I use that money to then put into passive income generating assets. So it's kind of the same thing where I'm surrounded by real estate. Why don't I just go towards the investing side of it? Not only am I going to be able to help investors, it makes more sense to me, but it's also going to make my investing better
Yeah.
if I'm working with them all the time as well. I'm just going to be surrounded by it. So there was one moment, I don't even know who the client was, but I think it was in probably like towards the end of 2022. Um, it was a nice house. It was like $250,000 house. Buyer, you get there, 10, 15 minutes early. I drove 30 minutes to get there, turn all the lights on, run through the entire house, and then I go back out and I just sit at the front door, with my little piece of paper, just waiting for the buyers to show up. They show up, they walk in through the front door, and they look down, and the carpet's an ugly color, just some like ugly pink or something outdated color, and they just turn right back around and walk back out the door and say that they're not interested in it. They didn't even walk the rest of the house, and so that was the moment that I knew I didn't want to work with traditional home buyers anymore because the color of the carpets don't matter.
They can be taken out,
They
believe it
can
or
be
not.
replaced. Carpet, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, depending on how big the house is. So I knew at that moment that it was too emotional, and it wasn't something that I wanted to continue doing.
Yeah. And you had already been listening to Bigger Pockets, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
This is still listening to Bigger Pockets every day.
was that information that you already had in your head like, oh, I know I'm working with these buyers, but everyone else that's killing it, they're working with people that are either trying to buy for investment purposes or they're listing a property they flipped?
Yeah. So I knew all along that I wanted to get into investing. I feel like I didn't have the background or the history to be able to work with investors. It was kind of an imposter syndrome where if I wasn't investing myself yet, I don't know if I can help other investors. And so I had a couple of clients, investors that I was working with at the time, and I didn't feel like I had enough clients or enough income to be able to go full time into the investing space. So I was just working with everybody that came my way. And at that moment, it probably still wasn't enough for what I wanted to do. But I knew that if I stopped working with the traditional home buyers, if I stopped driving 35 minutes and getting there 15 minutes early and wasting an hour of my time there and just focusing on the investing side of things, that I'm going to be able to pick up that business where I was lacking on the traditional side.
And something that I want to focus on today, because this is one of the reasons why I think I like working with you, is we're both young and you've been doing this, what, 2, 3 years now?
This is my third full year.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a lot of guys that I think I've known where maybe they start a business and then they hit that first wall like you had, whether it's like the home buyers or whatever their version of it is. Why did you not just quit in that moment?
Yeah.
Why did you say it's what I'm doing, not it's real estate that's wrong?
Um, it's quitting isn't in my head. And I guess it just goes back to my parents, goes back to playing sports. It's just the competition. It's the nature that I have. Quitting isn't an option. I knew that there was success in it. I knew other people are having success in it, and I knew that at some point it was going to be something that picks up. I just needed to pivot within that space.
And when you're going through these pivots, because every business owner has it, how are you handling your anxiety and all the emotions of this?
Yeah.
Or were there moments where you didn't, where it was like, damn, I like part of the job is I have to learn to control Journey.
There were hard times. I mean, right after college, I moved back in with my dad and stayed there for a full year to save money because real estate, and especially in the beginning, you don't make a lot of money. Um, Obviously, I'm young. I don't have kids. I don't have a family to raise. I don't have a big mortgage or anything like that. So I knew that I just needed to keep doing it. It's just really something for me, and I tell people this all the time. I am the happiest person you'll ever meet. I'm always smiling, nobody in this room, in any room, can ever say something to me and piss me off.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you pissed off before.
Because it doesn't matter. Because I know tomorrow is going to be a different day. I'm going to wake up. There's something new that's going to happen tomorrow. I know I'm going to be around. So why am I worrying and stressing and doing all of these different things for today? There's going to be another house. There's going to be another paycheck. There's going to be another person.
So you don't consume a lot of content other than bigger pockets, but how have you not fell into the trap that I think a lot of people fall into, which is just like doomsday? Like I know you said you have pretty healthy phone habits, right? What like is that something that you think sports build into you, or is that something you actively have to be like this isn't worth freaking out about?
Yeah. I think my girlfriend was a big reason for the balance. Just because we knew, like, she works a typical 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever it is. And so it was just something that I try to get on her schedule because when she comes home, we know that we wanted to spend time
Yep.
together when she comes home, especially with being an agent. There's no off switch. Um, so I just knew that it was something that I just tried to create that schedule for. So that way, when it's time to turn it off, that we need to turn it off.
Yeah. So that's another thing too. Like you have not fell into the trap of going to every networking event, showing up at places that don't actually do anything for you. Do you think that being in a relationship has been a business asset for you?
Yeah, yeah, and I guess to go with the question is, I don't care. To put it very simply, I'm not gonna go to something that I know I don't care about,
Yeah.
because I don't care about what other people think about me. I don't care what other people view me as. If I know it's not going to benefit me in some way, or benefit my business, or benefit the people around me in my business, then it's not something I'm gonna spend my time on.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Networking events, groups, meetings. I just know that if it's a useless meeting, I'm not going to it.
And how has the social life played a part in this? Because I know you're really good about, you say you go to the gym every morning, right? You obviously have
Yep.
2 dogs now. So, what is your tip for someone out there who is starting a business, but balance just seems like a crazy word they can't imagine?
Yeah, I think a lot of people procrastinate and waste time. And so something that helped me a ton, but I tell a lot of people about, especially agents, is just creating a schedule, creating a time blocking. If you need a time block, time block. But I knew that there are things that need to get done. If I write it down, so I have a little notepad. It's not in here, but it's just a little notebook, and it's literally just a square box, and then whatever that task is. And I know that if it's on that piece of paper, it's on that note, it has to get done. Either it's going to get done now at 11 a.m., 12 p.m. in the middle of the day, or it's going to get done at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I'm not doing it later.
Yeah.
So it needs to be done now. So as soon as it's on that piece of paper, it's solidified. Somebody's saying that it needs done. It's me,
Yeah.
and I know it needs to get done.
And so that allows you to have time where in the morning you're going to the gym, and then after work, you're usually, I'm assuming, just hanging out with the lady and the dogs, right?
For the most part, yeah, yeah. We cook together 6 out of 7 nights. We do date night once a week. We go on walks with the dogs after 5, 6 o'clock. And we definitely spend a lot of our evenings in the house together.
So you were not the one who decided to get the dogs, but now that you have them, do you think that is a good way for you to realize that not everything is work? Like being able to spend time with them and just kind of disconnect?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good coping method. I think there's obviously science behind like dogs and animals being good for stress and good for things like that. They bring animals into the workspace. So I think it's a really good and really healthy excuse to not work.
Yeah, for me, like there are days where business feels like it's on fire or everything's going wrong, and then I realize like all the dog wants to do is play right now, and then it's kind of this free refresher of like not everything needs done right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just trying to create that balance to make sure that the dog gets their walk in
Yeah.
and you get everything done that you need to get done because then if you don't do everything, then the dog doesn't get its walk.
And then there's, I remember even for me, I would like when we first got him, I think I forgot to give him breakfast on like the third day. And I felt so bad about it. But I'm like, man, I don't even check in on Alex. Like if I forget breakfast, I'm just like, all right, meeting, meeting, meeting. So it is good to kind of have that check back in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what would be your advice to new business owners to try and create that balance?
It's gonna be extreme, but I do think like if you're a guy, whether gay or straight, like you need a boyfriend or you need a girlfriend. There needs to be another party in your life that cares about you, the human. Because I think you and I are both like we have that same competitive drive in business where, let's be honest, if you didn't have the dog and girlfriend, you would work till 10 p.m. And that would just be probably every day. So having something that is more important to you to pull you out. But I think too, it's actually asking, because I did this a lot and I still have days where I'm guilty of it. What is your actual ROI on time spent when you work from 7 to 10 p.m.? Probably really low. You're probably tired. You're probably not doing your best work. So, like, if you're going to do work at those times, make it things that are easy, where if the TV's on, it's not affecting what you do. So, I think that's the big one. But I think another one is like the health side of things. Like, I know you get up in the morning, go to the gym. I do the same. I've worked with a lot of business owners, and the one common thread of every inconsistent business owner that I've worked with is they don't take care of their health. Like far none. Like that is one of those traits where even on sales calls now, I will guise it as a social media question, but I'll be like, what active things do you do in their life? And if they say nothing, that is a huge red flag for us, because if you're not able to take care of your health, what are the odds you're going to talk to a camera? It's probably pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it was something I said it before. I played sports all my life, and I knew acting, working out was something that I will always do because it also helps me do work.
Well, there's the cortisol benefit.
Yeah,
That's another thing. Like if you stress your body enough out in a good way via like lifting or running in the morning, you literally just don't even have the hormones to be stressed out as much during the day. So
yeah,
like I remember when I used to go real heavy on squats, something terrible could happen 3 hours later, and my body was like, okay, we can't freak out about this.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude. I think another one I want to ask you about is the amount of transactions you're doing is crazy right now. Like I think a lot of people need to understand that you weren't always doing this. So like, how are you handling everything we just talked about in the midst of what 78 transactions on the middle of July?
yeah. So there was a point to where I started to get too busy. I am huge on systems, and scheduling and structure and organization. You can even like walk into my house and like everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. And so every part of my business is very systematized and very structured. And at some point, there was too many transactions going on to now I need help. So I brought on a full time assistant this year. So last year we ended up doing, I think it was like 62 or 63 transactions for the year. And from October to December, I think we had like 25.
Okay.
So it was almost half of my transactions were in that like 3 month period, 3 to 4 month period. And so I knew that it like something was happening.
Yeah.
So then we brought on a full time assistant. She works 40 hours a week, and it doubled. I mean, it almost instantly, because now she's doing a lot of the paperwork side of things, a lot of the things that took a lot of time away from the money making activities. And now that I'm able to spend time on the money making side of things, our business has doubled since then.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, but everything is structured. Everything is systematized. Every single client that I work with, they all have a Google Drive folder with their name on it. In that folder is every single property that they've ever bought, touched, looked at. Inside of that folder of that address is every single document that they've ever signed, titled, and just the address plus whatever document it is. Everything is in there in Google Drive.
And I remember, I think, because when did we talk? January, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of your statements is you were like, well, 2023 was the year I was going to be really consistent on social media. You're like, and then I got busy.
Yeah.
So like, was that hard for you to give up some of that control?
It was.
Like to me and the assistant, I'm asking both ways. Like
Yeah.
what were the limitations you had of like, ooh, I have to let this go?
Yeah, it was very, very difficult. And I think especially with me, you mentioned at the beginning that I'm on the younger side. And so I haven't had the opportunity to really try and pass off a lot of activities to yet. But everybody talks about it. I know it as well. It's leverage. You can't do everything yourself. You're not going to go anywhere if you're doing it yourself. So I knew that I had to have other people around me that can take over those tasks. I knew social media was something that I wanted to do. I know having a social media presence is huge, even though it wasn't the direct money making activity. And that's kind of why it got pushed to the wayside, was
Yeah.
because I wasn't making money from it.
So everything you were doing at that time was hunting versus farming. You were just everyday hunt, hunt, hunt.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I was doing other work, a lot of desk work and document work at the time, especially, which now I don't do. And I just knew that it wasn't something I needed to spend the time on, because if I just kept focusing on social media myself, I wasn't going to make any money anywhere else.
Yeah.
So then had to bring in someone else and had to get help to then do the document side of things so that I could spend time on what I actually needed to do, as well as bring in somebody to help with the social media side of things. So I knew that I could spend time on what I needed to do.
And I think a lot of people are always worry to delegate because they're like, well, my service is going to get worse. Has your service got worse, or would you say it's gotten better?
It's gotten better. It's definitely gotten better in these aspects of it, because the document side of things, it's obviously not something that I have continuous conversations with. It's not where I'm talking to people. It's just putting together documents on a page. And so that side of it, I just knew we could make it faster. And now I can talk to people more. I can have more conversations. I can do more research because I have more time. And then social media really has just been a backboard for me. Everybody that I talk to, every conversation that I have, I tell them to go and look me up on social media. You can find me anywhere, and you're gonna see what I'm doing and
Yeah.
what I've been posting. And I think when people see that consistency and that level of production, even though you could be talking about nothing, but if they open your page and they see you have 500 posts and they're all short form content, they know you're doing something.
Yeah.
Like something's going on where you're like, okay, maybe I should trust this guy, because trust this guy, girl, because of what they're doing.
And that was something I was excited about when we had that first talk is you were like, I have so many of these unique transactions and I never share them. And I was like, okay, that's good. Because from my side, one of the scariest things I can hear on like a discovery call is I'm like, hey, how many transactions have you done? And they're like, oh, I did a couple last year. And the year before I did 5, but this year's been slow. Because then I'm like, okay, what are we talking about now?
Yeah. Well, I think that was one of the things I remember you telling me about it was when we had our first discovery call. You didn't think I did that much business.
No, I didn't. I actually, because I had heard your name from a few people that we both knew, and I I knew you were young, so I definitely had the misconception of like this guy's just starting.
Yeah.
And you said the number, and I remember I hit mute. I was like, type this in, and then I like hit unmute, and I was like, okay, have you always done that? And you're like, no, things are going quick. And I was like, all right, this is unique. And I think for that, like for anyone listening, if you are in a position like Journey was, where you're doing a lot, like don't make the excuse of I will document when things slow down. Like when you're in a window, like in basketball, I call it, like when you have the hot hand, you have to keep shooting. So like when your business is picking up, even if you don't post, let's say a video that you filmed today, just documenting it today so that in 3 weeks, a month, you have that. That's what these clients are looking at. Like when they watch your videos, they don't care when it was posted. They don't care that this was 3 months ago. Like you said, is Journey actually doing the business he says he is?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been good. I mean, it's been exciting. Everything that's been happening with social media, I think it's been really, really good. I have had countless people tell me that the social media is really cool and it's really good. And that's the big reason why I wanted to bring in help for it, because I knew it was important and I knew it was something that's going to help my business in the future too.
And another thing that I think is a shift that a lot of people are seeing with like business owners our age is you aren't Mr. Hello, this is Journey Toole. I'm here to, so like you've been very personal. Like, is it hard for you to be Journey on camera, or do you think it's easier to just be yourself?
I think it's easy for me. And I think it kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about before, where it's like, I don't care. I don't care what I look like. I don't care, what people
Hey, hold
think.
up, hold up. We're gonna pause right there. Is there a chance that a realtor might have a tattoo sleeve?
I don't know one.
You don't
No,
know
I
any?
don't know one. No,
Is there a chance that the transactions might not hit 100 per year if people knew you had tattoos?
it might slow down. Yeah.
Where do you think? Because I've talked to a couple people about this. So like you do very well at, I think, like when it comes to knowledge or telling your story, you're great at it. But there is still that concern, and I think it'd be cool to talk about like where has that fear stemmed from for you?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly where it stems from.
So let me ask you in the first place,
Yeah.
why did you get the tattoos?
Yeah. It was something that just kind of the image of it. It was something that I always knew looked really cool. Just growing up, playing sports again, Madden, 2K, things like that. And
And you had to pay extra in the video game, spend a little
yeah,
XP.
you can customize your character a little bit. And so I knew it was something that was really interesting for me. And obviously the meaning of him. So everything that I have, everything has meaning to it. And I knew that it's going to be on me forever.
And when you see someone else, because I have no tattoos, and when you see someone else who has a tattoo, do you feel like there's like a conversation that starts where it's like, oh, what does that one mean?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. And it's almost something coming from a person that has, a lot of tattoos. It's almost like I feel a little bit more trusting of somebody that has tattoos. And it's kind of reverse of what most people would think, because it's painful, and it takes money to do, and so it's just kind of like a step where I know what that person has gone through, and it just makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with them.
Like, so they've taken a same, what we call it risk. They took a risk to get something on their body, because that's another thing too. You have to trust your artist. Like, there
Yeah,
is a chance that you spend thousands of dollars and you look at your arm and go, "What on earth did I just pay?"
yeah, yeah.
So you trusted your artist.
It's a ton of risk to do it in the first place. It's very permanent. It costs a lot of money and it's a lot of trust. So I know going into having that conversation with that person that I feel a little bit more comfortable with them, just based on them taking the risk of doing that.
So if you were on a Zoom and some guy in Sacramento wants to buy a house in Cleveland and he goes, "Let me grab my water," and then boom, you see that little tattoo pop out, are you going to say something?
Probably not.
No, but maybe if you were like a golf
But I
athlete.
knew, but as
In
soon
your
as I
head.
saw it, I knew. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Fair. Okay, I
Yeah.
just had to call you out on that one.
I
'Cause
wouldn't say anything to them, unless it was something that like I also have, or like something that meant something more.
So maybe, do you think when you hit transaction 100 before the end of the year, you might make a video in short sleeves?
We'll see. We'll have to
All right,
see.
we'll keep it
Yeah,
as a maybe.
we'll have to see what happens with it. I mean, with the pace we're at right now, I think we have 4 that are supposed to be closing this week. I mean, we're probably going to be close to 100 before the end of the month.
And so that comes the next conversation. So you've got your assistant, we're taking care of the content, but at a certain point, there's going to be a need another human selling houses. So like, this is now a next evolution for you. So how do you, because I think you've done a unique thing where you've increased the amount of transactions, or let's call it performance, of your company. But is it fair to say that right now in July, you have more free time than you did last July?
Yeah, probably.
So when you see the point you're at now, I know that off camera we were talking about you made a few investments of your own. So are you in this mad rush of like, I need to hire another agent, or do you think you actually now have created this kind of beautiful window where your original goal of investing, you're now financially set up to where the money's coming in and you can now buy your investments? Is that kind of more what you think your focus is today?
Yeah, so I would definitely say my biggest focus is pushing into my own personal investing. Um, and so, like I kind of said before, real estate as an agent is my active income. It's my fuel to then fuel my passive. And I think there is a point, especially in the very near future, where there needs to be another piece that gets put into the puzzle. Where we're now getting to the point where we're very busy again, and it almost feels like we're going to be kind of stagnant. We've like hit a point to where it's not possible for me and my assistant to do everything.
Yeah.
And there needs to be another person that gets put in.
So if someone, let's say they're watching this, maybe they're a friend of a friend for you or me, and they're like, "Man, I want to make money. Maybe I don't have the same risk tolerance as Alex and Journey. Like, maybe I still want to know things are there." What would be some personality traits of someone that you think could help you over the next, let's call it 1 to 2 years,
Yeah.
assuming they have the sales bone, because
Sure.
that is something they need.
Sure. So I think it's kind of with the piece, especially working with investors, it just needs to be very, I don't know what the term for it is, but you just can't let anything get to you. You just have to let things go. You have to let the water fall off your back, whatever it is, because investors are very difficult to work with in general. It's very, very cold, especially with out of state investors, which is majority of my business. So trait wise, I think it needs to be that. I think it can't be, hypersensitive, hyper emotional. Um, Very, very controlled of their emotions. Outside of that, I think it needs to be very driven. So somebody who has a mindset to always want more,
Yeah.
to never be comfortable with where they're at. There's always going to be something more. And I think the biggest thing is just somebody who is going to be good to have around. Somebody who's going to be fun.
They have to pass the
Yes.
vibe check.
Yeah, they have to pass the vibe check.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be fun. They have to be smiley. They have to be bubbly. They have to be able to just have good conversations and be able to be a good person. I have, say I have a client who's interviewing multiple agents. I have won dozens of clients just because they had a good conversation talking with me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm very entertaining. I'm good to talk with. I'm comfortable to have conversations with. Versus somebody who's just a little bit more robotic or just kind of answers questions with like yes, no. Um, I've won clients because of that.
Yeah, I think that's something too that I think you and I joked about. Maybe it was like one of the first times we talked, but we were joking about like the ability to follow up. I think I asked you a question. I was like, "Well, do you actually follow up with people?" And you're like, "Alex, of course I follow up with people." But I know a lot of people are afraid of that. They're like, "Oh, well, maybe I don't want to be pushy." And especially our generation, we probably can both say we have friends where if we call them, they're not answering, but if you text them, they're like, "Oh, hey, Journey, what's up, man?"
Yeah,
So like,
I'm like that.
where do you think that risk is though? Because I think that's a real thing. Like you and I in 10 years will be business owners still doing this, but of all these guys right now that are afraid of phone calls, like how's that going to hurt them?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general the world is changing in a sense where the younger generations do prefer text or email communications over phone. But I think that it will hurt them because they aren't willing to go out of their comfort zone. And if they aren't willing to go out of their comfort zone to call somebody to do something that they don't like, they aren't going to be willing to go out of their comfort zone to other aspects of their business that they need to go. Every single day, we're adjusting and reviewing what we're doing. And if we're comfortable with what we have, it's not enough. We need to adjust something because now, if you get to a point where every day is the same and you're just doing the same stuff, it's boring.
Yeah.
And it needs to change, and you need to get back out of your comfort zone and do something else, or else it's just gonna go down into the ground.
Yeah. So I had this conversation. It was about a month ago. So one of the systems we're going to start rolling out is basically a paid ads offer for anyone that does video. The next level is put some fuel on the fire. And I had 4 candidates on Indeed, and they looked good. They had experience doing it. One was out of a job, the other one was doing freelance work, and then one person was connected to me from Drew Battaglia. I'll give him a shout out. And I got the guy's phone number. He texted me immediately and goes, "Would you be upset if I called you right now?" And I'm like, "Okay, I know where this is going." I go, "Not at all. Give me a call." Calls me within 30 seconds. And I think we spoke for an hour. And I actually didn't even interview the other 4 people. But it was one of those things where I was like, I think he was 20 years old. He was willing to make that phone call. And I do think that was a lever for me where I was like, even if the other guys may be better, I'm going to see a long-term play with this guy because he just communicated to me. And I think that's something that so many guys are wimping out on that could make them probably a lot of money down the line if they just got over whatever that fear is in their head.
Yeah, yeah, it's just getting out of your comfort zone. I think especially with everything, the world that's changing has been changing over the years. It's just not something that is super common anymore.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest, let's call it self personality trait or something you've identified in yourself that has got you here? Like, let's not talk about systems. Let's not talk about, the market you're in, but like, why do you think as a person you've had the success you've had?
I am relentless, relentless, unforgiving, follow up wise, my business wise, like even follow ups. I have follow ups with people that I've got connected with 2 years ago that I still will text or call every single month. I won't stop until you tell me to stop.
Okay, so this is another thing for all the guys afraid to call. I remember there's a lender, Chris Smith, out in Orange County that I work with, and I think I sent him, it was like 16 text messages, maybe 3 voicemails, and then I just started going from social media to social media. And in my head, I knew he was in California, so I could risk it a little bit. And then apparently he had COVID. And he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "You left me like 18 touch points." He's like, "Anyone that's willing to do that, I'm worth giving a shot." And so I was like, "Oh, this is confirmation that what you said is true. If they don't tell you to stop, you're not bothering them."
Yeah,
Like if they wanted you to stop, they would say it.
yeah, and literally I'll leave voicemails like that too. I was like, if you're not interested in working together or not interested in investing here, just let me know. I
Yeah,
won't call you again. If you tell me to stop, I'm not going to call you again. But
fair.
if you're not answering me, I don't take that's not a no to me.
Yeah,
That's just you maybe haven't seen it,
it's a
maybe you're
not
ignoring.
yet.
Yeah, it's not yet. And I've had, like you just mentioned, clients that were working with another agents that continued to see my follow up. Something happened with that other agent, or they got a bad deal, whatever it was, and then they come back around
Yeah.
because I'm always there.
Yeah, and I think that's something, especially like you and I are in a similar business where a lot of your clients are also business owners or sales roles.
Yeah.
So you're not talking to someone that's never been in sales. You're talking to someone who's probably actively judging you on how you're even selling them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And most of the clients, especially surrounding real estate, are highly intelligent individuals who created their own businesses or run their own businesses that have high income earning jobs or careers.
What is the most work you've ever put in with a client to get a sale? When we talk about like follow up and like communication, like what's one where you think back and you're like, man, I did everything to get that one across the line?
I don't know about follow up or communication. I think one of the ones I could probably just go back to would be just like showing, like actual time spent.
Okay.
Would be like showings. And it's actually my dad and my my now stepmom. Yeah, stepmom. And I think we showed them like 25 or 26 houses across like 6 months before they actually bought
And
something.
was there a point where you're like, are you guys actually buying
Yeah, I was
this?
like, dude, we gotta find something. But I think especially now with the investors, I think things just move a lot faster. I just don't think there is that much time spent into it because the deal makes and that's something that I talk to all my investors about. I talk to all my clients about is we set up that buy box,
Yeah.
whatever that crystal clear criteria, the CCC, whatever that is, that's what the box needs to be. If it doesn't hit that box, we're not looking at it.
Yeah. So
And
you build that for investors.
I help them. So like we need to figure out exactly what that property is. If I have a call with somebody and they're like, "Yeah, I'm looking at, you know, Section 8 properties under 100,000, but, turnkey, but would be open if there's a property that needs work, that needs some renovation, I can put in my little bit of my own cash." Multifamilies seem like they might be able to make a little bit more money. But if a really good deal comes across the table that I could flip and then just sell and make a quick profit, I'd be open to that. I'm like, I mean, you just named every single strategy in the book. I mean, I could send you 50 different properties right now that meet all of those, but you're not going to buy any of them because you're looking at everything.
Yeah.
But if you tell me, or I help you, tell me that you want a single family that's turnkey between 80 and 120,000 in a C or a D class neighborhood,
You're fine that Wednesday morning.
it's exactly that. And there's going to be 5 properties that hit that.
Yeah.
And it'll be much easier and you're not going to be as stressed and I'm not going to be as stressed because everybody knows exactly what you're looking for.
So, I mean, we were talking about this before, but like different ways to monetize content. I think a big shift we're going to make with you is you do so many, like I'm learning this live now, services within being a realtor. Like I didn't even think about that, but literally just explaining you will build a buy box for someone is something probably so many first or beginning investors don't really have someone help them do. Because you're right, when they come to you, they probably think that's a great idea, right? They're like, oh, well, I might want this or I might want that. But all you as Journey here is like, this person has no idea what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just shiny object syndrome. It's just whatever and it's a portion of like listening to podcasts and, being a sponge, listening to the information. Everybody's doing something different. But when they're listening to the podcast after podcast after podcast, each person talks about something different. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I can do that, or I can do that, or I can do that. And so rather than, because if they listen closely, that one podcast, it's the one person talking about the one strategy that they do. But if they listen to 3 different podcasts, 3 different people talk about the 3 different things they did.
And they don't see, whereas you see how many different roads that is, they kind of see it as this big.
It's a big, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's this big pot of investing that they can try and dive into, especially for a new investor. It's hard to figure out what that strategy is. And having that initial call is trying to figure out what their goals are.
So what is your strategy now as you begin to invest, and why is that your strategy?
My personal investing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my personal investing so far has been B class and A class neighborhoods. It has only been multifamily properties up to this point, so 2 to 4 units, small residential. Um, Value add opportunities. So I'm not going in and perfect burr 70-75% ARV with hard money cash, whatever. Traditional loans, renovating them with my own cash, kind of like a long play burr. With the way that interest rates are right now, I don't want to refinance because it just costs thousands, and then you're just going to be stuck with a higher rate than you bought it 6 months ago, probably.
Fair.
So that's been my buy box: B class, A class neighborhoods, multifamily, a little bit of value add, 10 to 20,000 per unit, and then holding them and renting them out.
So with your active income, I would say you're aggressive and risky, whereas with your investing, you're maybe a little more conservative and you're playing a long-term game.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely the neighborhoods that I'm in are very safe. I know I have zero stress, zero worry about the tenants that are in those buildings. I have zero worry about the buildings because they're all built after like 1965, 1970.
Newer homes.
Yep. Yeah. They're very new. So I'm not worried about knob and tube wiring because that wasn't there back then. It was before that. And so it just has been very, very stress free for now. And it's been very expensive, and I won't lie about that part of it.
Yeah.
These are very expensive investments, and it's a lot of the clients that I talk to, they always ask me like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "You don't want to do what I want to do."
Yeah, not what you're about to do.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense for you. But
Now, if they were a huge producing agent, maybe living in Washington, though, it might.
yeah, so it just depends. And so and I was just telling an investor this literally yesterday, and they were asking me what I do, and I was like, you don't want to do what I do, and they were like, why? And I was like, because I can cut corners. We buy this $250,000 duplex, and it's going to rent for around that 1% rule, but I don't pay property management fees. I can go out there, or I can have my, people that I know. I used to run a painting and flooring company. I can give them, $300 to come in and paint my house. But if you're not local, if you're not there, you can't do some of those things. Whereas I can kind of cut those corners and make those dollars matter more.
Yeah.
Whereas a complete true passive investment from an out-of-state investor standpoint, you can't do that.
Or they're going to pay such a high fee for the property management company to find the painters that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, even just property management fees, which I recommend for out-of-state investors, especially if you want passive, it's a big fee. Yeah. It's part of the doing business, and any analysis that I run, it's something that's always in the analysis, so that way they know that that's what the pure cash flow number is going to be.
Yeah. All right. So final question: what do you think your goals are looking ahead 1 year from now, and who are some of the people that could maybe join you along the way? So if someone's watching this, maybe they want to be an agent, maybe they have worked for another brokerage. What are your goals, and who do you think is going to help you get there?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is I want to bring in another team member. On the agent side of things. So I want to bring in, and I've kind of been going back and forth about how to structure it, but an agent who is willing to partner, essentially. So I don't want to start a team. I think that's kind of something that I've decided. I don't want to be a team. I want to be a solo agent, and I want to give that flexibility to the other agent as well. And I want to partner and referral and just have deals that we do together. And so that way they're building a business under their own name as well. And basically a showing agent.
Yeah.
So somebody who is a little bit newer, who maybe has a lot more time than I might have, and that is very interested and willing to show properties, to take videos of properties, and to kind of be in person on the ground.
Yeah.
Whereas I might be able to spend a little more time at a computer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But being able to respond to messages, calls, and
build more
stuff.
relationships, focus on the bigger picture.
Yep. Yeah. So doing the active side of things with looking at properties more.
Yeah. And what advice, let's end it on something good. What advice do you have for someone who thinks, man, I'm too young to start a business and I think I'll do that one day?
Yeah. Now is when you start. And I think it's the biggest reason is because you don't have any expenses. Like I said, as soon as I graduated from college, I didn't have kids. And maybe not everybody's like that. Maybe you get into some situations where you have more responsibility than I might have had. But you're young. If you screw up, say you start a business right now and you make $5,000 your first year, you make $20,000 your second year, and then it just runs into the ground. Okay, now you're what, 24, 25? Start another one. The way that I always viewed everything with being an agent and trying to build what I'm going to build is if I fail, I can just go be like everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to do something different, and there is a level where everybody else is doing something. If the absolute worst case scenario is what everybody else is doing, I'm just going to keep going up.
So you don't see it as risk, really?
No, it's not risk, because there's if you fail, go get another job.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, I know.
Or even deeper with you and I, it's like even if you fail, like just keep going.
Yeah.
Like you and I have both probably failed plenty of times that others would have quit at.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it. This year to date, I'm over 80 transactions. My very first year, I did 3. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, from 3 transactions 3 years ago to now over 80 in my third year. I mean, There's a lot of points in there. There's a lot of things that happen in there. Too much to talk about on one podcast, but there are a lot of things. There's a lot of failures, and I talk about this too. There is no such thing as a failure, at least in my mind, in my business. The only way you fail is if you quit. And if you never quit, it's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. And it's something where you maybe did something wrong and then you figured out what it was that you did wrong. You adjusted it and now you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, we'll go deeper into another one, but I just want to thank you for coming on today.
Yeah. Appreciate
Definitely.
your time. Thank
All
you.
right, guys, we will see you next week, and thank you for watching.